I'm not seeing it. Jeff, no audio coming out of the meeting. Video good.
There we go.
Can you hear us, John?
There we go. Thanks for that. We still had it. So let me restate this. I'd like to open the floor to public comment. This comment may include anything related to tonight's agenda items. Commenters must state their name and whether they are a resident of the township or a non-resident taxpayer in the township. If you do not identify yourself, your comments will not be included in the official minutes. Do we have any public comment? Sure, you can hear me. Hey, can we, John, can you hear us?
Yes, I could hear you fine. I don't have any comments for the beginning.
No, I wasn't suggesting you did. Just wanted to make sure you could hear me.
Oh, the audio didn't work at the beginning, and it was.
Yeah, we had it. We had inadvertently had it on mute. So.
All right, very good. Thank you.
You didn't miss anything.
All right.
All right.
All right. I'll move to the first agenda item, which is the approval of minutes. I make a motion that the board approve the March 20th, 2024 Board of Supervisor meeting minutes. Have a second for that?
I'll second it.
Okay, Jim. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. And motion carries 5-0.
Okay, I would like to move on to get Melissa Ortega to give us the March Treasurer's Report.
Hi, guys. The March 2024 Treasurer's Report includes the following disbursements. The general fund with disbursements and transfers of $192,664.19. The Park and Recreation Fund with disbursements of $1,740.25. The Open Space Fund with disbursements of $5,350.16. The Capital Reserve Fund with disbursements of $0. The Emergency Services Fund with disbursements of $61,092.08. The Fire Hydrant Fund with disbursements of $580.80, leaving a balance in all funds totaling $1,944,986.80.
I'd like to make a motion that the board approve the March 2024 Treasurer's Report as presented by Melissa Ortega. Can I have a second?
Yes.
Okay, Donna. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the zoning officer's report. This report was compiled by the Township Zoning Officer, Mark Gordon. In the month of March 2024, 2 permits were issued for $554.50 in permit fees. $0 were collected for miscellaneous fees, $0 in recreation and open space fees, $0 in impact fees were collected for the month. And there were 11 inspections performed.
So Jimmy, before we move on to the next item, can we talk about some zoning and code issues? I know our zoning officers isn't here, but Jeff, maybe you can help us. There's two items that I have interest in. One was the 50 Walnut Glen Road, the issue with bamboo. The owner had a date of April 22nd to remove the bamboo. Has that happened? Do you know?
In a nutshell, they started. Mark Gordon and I had a meeting with the homeowner and an Amish elder. And I believe they understand.
Okay.
They started work. So they made good progress and they're hoping within the next month and a half, 2 months to have it all gone.
Okay, great.
But they are moving on it.
Okay. And then my second one is 3327 Appleton Road. There was going to be a meeting. Did that ever take place?
Yes, ma'am, it did. We did meet with them, talked about various possibilities. The township is going to give them 60 days to come up and decide on a plan
Okay.
and bring it before the planning commission.
Okay.
So right now, the homeowner has many ideas.
Okay.
So we're encouraging him to narrow that down and come to the township with something.
Okay. That's good. So you're making some progress. Thank you.
Yes.
I don't anticipate this to be an issue, but if after those 60 days, he doesn't come up with a plan, what would be potential actions?
So I can weigh in on that, Mr. Chairman, if you wish, because I attended that meeting.
Mhm.
The extension was granted because the clock was ticking with respect to the property owner's obligation to take action regarding the NOV. If by the time, if by the expiration of that extension, he's going to have to make a decision whether he fights the township through some sort of appeal process or whether he acquiesces to the township's request. So we'll keep an eye on that and then advise Mr. Eastburn accordingly. The property owner's attorney was present. I know him, and I will try to engage him well before the period of extension has expired, so we don't run into that sort of problem.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay. All right. So thank you, Donna. Moving on, Andrea Roberts will present the Park Rec and Open Space Report. Andrea?
Hi, how are you? Good evening. Quick update from the Pro Board for this past month. We worked on an update of the You Are Here map. We continue to kind of nudge forward on that, working through details of the legend, adding details, the Bluebird Trail and boxes to the map, adding those to the legend. And then we kind of decided that once we get to a good point, what we'd like to do is have Jeff maybe print in the township building a mock-up to scale of what that would look like. And then we can all look at it and make sure that everything's scaled properly, everything's legible. And then from there, we would come to you guys for approval to get the signs printed and to finalize. After that, we talked about coming up with a volunteer day. There are quite a few tubes on trees that were planted that have come off or have fallen down that need to be replaced. We recently have had several people offer to help with volunteer days. We've got high school kids looking for hours, and so would like to engage them and see if they can help with that process. Just replacing the tubes, zip tying them, just to ensure that, you know, we're protecting the trees that were planted. So we're working on a date for that, and we'll update everyone as that comes about. And then also we're working on, so their local Boy Scout Liam Kelly came to you guys with a proposal to do trail markers at Franklin Preserve. After we walked the trails with him, he needs quite a few more trail markers than I think he was originally thinking. And so we're doing a little bit of research to try and help him to find reasonably priced trail markers, and then something that we could also purchase again in the future for replacements if necessary once we go to do the trail markers over in Crossan Park. And so board member Overton is working on that. He's pricing those, and we'll come to you guys with any update on that. And then lastly, a quick one, over at Bamshire, Pro Board member, Bob Magnus, has been trying to pull together details for a raised flower bed. And I believe he's there tonight to speak to you guys about that. But we talked about that, met him in person just to look at where he wanted it. I think several of you maybe have seen the location he was thinking about, but he mocked that out with board member Overton, and he's there to present that to you tonight. And that's all I have on my end.
Great, thank you, Andrea. So I guess we hand it over to you, Bob.
Okay.
So after much long discussion over the months, we finally got it together. We have two options we can go with. You know me, I like to keep it as cheap as possible. So we could go with Cypress. It would be a 1x12 high. I want the thing a foot high. We can go that way. So with the Cypress, the dirt, I think it was 2 yards. I had figured out of topsoil. The mulch and the weed barrier. It's going to be around 250. Now another option is it might even be a little less. There's 6x6s in here. There's 3 of them. If anybody has 3 more, we can go that route and it knocks it down a whole lot. What I would need is another 2 8-footers and 2 6-footers. 4 6-footers.
Those are the ones that I
Yes.
think I have. There were 6.
Okay. So we could use 2 of the 6-footers.
What's going to last longer though? The cypress, right?
The Cypress, apparently it's going to last a long time. I talked to a few people who have used it and they've had it for a long time.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, we talking about it's 200, you said $250.
Right.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Then let's just do it with the Cypress.
all your effort to put it together.
Yeah. I
I'd
don't
like it to last a while, right?
Yeah.
But the cypress is only an inch. How?
It's only an inch thick.
Is that a problem? Yeah, so I
Well,
would,
well, how it's going to be done is it's going to be, mocked out, right? Just basically a rectangle. And it's going to be 4x8. And then there will be pressure treated 2x4s driven into the ground and it'll screw to that. So it'll support all of it.
Okay.
It's not like it's just going to be a 1x all the way around.
you're worried, yeah, because that would never make it either.
Right.
Yeah, because that's just going to run away and disappear.
Right.
Right? So then it's attached. Then we'll need flowers. So
We got you covered.
So we're going to expand the Friends of the Healing Garden to the Friends of the Healing
Friends-
Garden and
Friends of the
Banner.
Healing Garden, Board of Supervisors are going to help out with that.
They're growing.
So what I'd like to do is, seasonally, when one comes and dies off, something else pops up behind it so we can have it for the entire season. Just keep it going, keep it alive and looking pretty over there. Another thing that I'm going to add to that is everybody's been by there. They see where the new telephone poles have been put in.
Yeah.
Well, when I cut the grass there, I used to just do a swipe up the road. Well, now that it's all cleared out, I'm going to go behind the poles and give a bigger swipe so you have more visual for people coming around that curve.
Beautiful.
When you're trying to pull out of there.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's where we decided we're.
The Healing Garden.
Yeah.
So this is the edge.
raised
That'd be on the west side of the parking lot, right?
Okay, so like this, I'm sorry, we can't present it, but this is the edge of the,
It's in your book.
oh, okay.
Yes, one here.
It's in my book. But it's the edge of the, right on the edge of the parking lot.
It's actually, there's a buffer.
Setback, okay.
Setback, yeah,
It's set back along the drainage ditch,
right.
that comes off the road. And it butts to that. And then it still leaves plenty of room that if there
Well,
is.
Said back so that if there was. Sorry,
that
Bob,
again?
I was gonna say, Bob, can you hear me?
Yes,
I was gonna say, you also set it back far enough so if there was overflow parking, you could get extra cars in there. It was, it's set back far enough that it,
Great.
it's not gonna constrain extra parking if there's a lot of hunters or there's a hiking club or whatever it may be.
Yeah, that's great.
correct. That's what I was just leading into. So we did measure it out. There's 22 feet from there to the edge of the parking lot or to drive into the parking lot. So there is plenty of room for people to park there.
Beautiful.
Looks good.
I guess-
You live right there. How often do you see the parking lot, full? Like, is it,
Well,
3 or 4 times a year.
okay, so it's not like we're
It's not
taking
like-
up too much or?
It's not constant at
Yeah,
all.
Great.
And then with that extra land being opened up, since they put the poles in, people
Yeah.
could also park up in there.
Cool.
You know, which I'd much rather because there's no
Mhm.
grass. So you guys, I guess, need to vote on allowing us, the pro, to do that.
We have to put a motion or can we just tell Jeff, yeah?
I don't know if it's a motion, but because it's such a,
Sense of the board.
yeah, I think it's a great idea. Is there anybody opposed to doing this? So go forth and grow.
Thank you very much.
I know.
It's all ours.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it is the time of year for the healing garden to start buzzing, and I did put out a thing that said it's its 3-year-old birthday, but we're going into our 3rd year, the beginning of the 3rd year. So just so we get that right, we're going to go into our 3rd season. But with that said, the garden is growing beautifully. And we've already given away some plants, but we're going to be very stingy, I think, with our plants because we've mowed the meadow, and Betsy and some of our other people have been poking plants into the meadow. So we're working on the meadow now, and we're very happy with that. And we're going to see what we can do with it ourselves. And we've also we've started weeding. And with that, Noah Osner brought in a design for what's called a dead hedge compost pile. And it's an S-shaped compost, and it's just got posts. And what we do is we put the sticks in the compost, if people know about a dead hedge. And I put a thing out on the Facebook about putting branches and things. So we're going to do a sign for that so people understand what that is. It's very interesting looking. It's on the far side of the garden, on the edge, right to the right of the little library. And we've also put up both the bluebird signs. And for anybody that wondered why the bluebird signs aren't by the bluebird boxes, after great deliberation, we decided, with a lot of help from our friends, that it would be silly to put them by the bluebird boxes so people would disturb the bluebirds. So we put them within visual distance of the bluebird boxes. So if anybody sees them, you have to look out to where the bluebird boxes are. But Amy Carletti has sent out 2 updates on the bluebird boxes and who's in what box. And we got another one. Melissa was out there. So anybody that's out in the park, please keep an eye out. The boxes are numbered. We're trying to keep a log on what's in what box. And we do have some tree swallows and we do have some bluebirds. And with that said, we also have had some interest in some more plant swaps. Somebody in the room has said they were interested in another plant swap. And that's been extremely popular. I didn't get to go to Shane Palco's party with the trees the other day, but I understand it was well received. And boy, the plant swap idea has been really taking off. So I hope to do some more. And what I've done with Noah and with Betsy, if we're taking something out of the garden and we don't have a place to put it, I'll say we'll be over there on a certain day. Please come if you want it, bring a pot and bring dirt to replace the dirt. But anyway, lots had been going on. We're very excited, and we've got our reading program getting ready to start up again. So keep your eyes out for the dates on that.
So, Dawn, can I talk to you about the compost pile? So I'm not familiar with the concept, but does it look aesthetically okay? It's not like,
beautiful.
Oh,
It's,
okay,
it's
good.
very, it's not big. It's not big at all. And it almost looks like a natural fence because you put it, it's an S curve. Auntie is familiar with them. It's an S curve with posts. And you put it in, it's pretty. It's a neat look.
And then you put your leaves there and grass there?
Not so much grass, weeds that we pulled, stalks of things.
And then you let that degrade?
Yes.
And it goes back into the soil, or just after a while you have to move it out? I mean, I'm trying to think of how you just
No,
build this
really?
pile up, or what is it?
No,
No.
it breaks down, and as it breaks down, those stalks also are the stalks that have the bugs in them. So it's perpetuating the life cycle of the bugs as well. You'll have to come over and see
I'll have to
it.
check it out, but usually it
Because-
looks fine, right?
And
You said it
because
looks
we
fine.
also, we're gonna put a sign there that explains what it is, because they seem to be very popular right now.
It's not like a big smelling problem.
Yeah.
No.
It's not that at all.
It's
It's just
just
like
like
it's more like a dead hedge, like
Yes.
where you're weaving branches in between the posts. To make, and so you'll have two basket weaved kind of.
Well,
So-
weeds grow out of that, though? Could you
No, you throw
So
weeds in
you
there.
throw weeds in it and they're dying because the sun's hitting them.
Yeah.
And then they're gonna compost down.
You're,
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, my question was the weeds,
Yeah.
but it sounds like you guys know what you're doing, so I'll come by.
but see, that's another thing, because I want to make a sign, because it's for local gardeners. It's for people's gardens. So it's a teaching tool too for the garden. And Noah came over, and Jeff and Betsy and I, we all went over and looked at it. We made sure it was going to be right in the right place and it was going to look okay. And yeah, so we might even do a class on it.
The nice thing, Donna, with this, it's within the mulch flower bed itself. So it's not something that the mowers have to contend with or anything. So Noah did a great job. It's very well placed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the update. So now we are going to turn over the mic to Antia Consorto, who will provide us an update on the Big Elk Creek Development Project. Just as a reminder, Antia is one of the task force members that we elected to represent Franklin Township at the Big Elk Creek Development Project. Antia.
We had our first official task force meeting on March 28th. John Hollis elected himself and Scotty Crowder as the co-chairs of the task force. They used a slideshow to go over the purpose of the task force and logistics and all of that. I photographed all the slides, but they are supposed to include the slideshow with the meeting minutes when they publish them on the Big Elk Creek website. That has not so there was a very lively discussion about how they would put out meeting minutes. And originally it was that DCNR would take this audio recording and then have it written down into meeting minutes. And then the meeting minutes would be approved by the co-chair and nobody else would see them until they were published. So a bunch of us said, no, that's not okay with us. And we wanted to make sure that since they're closed meetings, we wanted the recordings made public, which they wouldn't do for the privacy of the task force members, but we did get them to agree to actually transcribe the entire meeting. So the transcription then goes out, and we also said we didn't want it approved by just one person, so that it's taking longer for them to come out to the public because we now have them send them to us.
So typically, and this happened this evening, we start every meeting with approval of minutes, right? So every member of our team reads the minutes and approves them.
So we discussed that, but because these meetings are 2 months apart, there's only 6 meetings. We thought that was too long to wait. 2 months is too long to wait for all these meeting minutes to come out. So we all get emailed the transcription and we're all given the opportunity. We were given a week to read over it and submit any changes that we wanted made.
Okay, so there's an opportunity for you to put
and
in.
then to approve them through email. And then once that's done, the cutoff was this past Friday. So then they said, give them another week to make any changes that were presented. So I'm hoping by the end of this week that the meeting minutes, which is really a transcription of a 3-hour meeting, will be available to the public along with the slideshow presentation. That was as close as I could get to making the meeting public. Thanks. So there will be pre-meeting site visits for the rest of for the next 5 meetings to be held on the day of the meeting at specific parts of the park to let people that want to come, that are part of the task force, to see the actual area that they're going to be discussing at that night's meeting. So they will all be sent out, I guess, when they send out the meeting agenda, they'll send out where our pre-meeting meetings will be. Let's see. So the task force member list is private. So it'd be great if people could stop asking me who is on it. I'm not allowed to share that information.
But that'll be in the minutes.
No, it's not. So the way that the meeting minutes or the transcription was done is that each individual task force member was assigned a number. Nobody other than task force members knows what number goes to which person. So that way it will just say, you know, member number 1 said X, Y, and Z. Member number 2 said, so that's how the transcription will be sent out.
Well, it says.
Will it be, may I ask, Mr. Chairman, will it be a verbatim transcription of the
Yes,
audio cassette?
it's supposed to be, yes. And I did read over them, and as far as this meeting goes, it does seem like it is verbatim. I mean, they're cutting out, you know, ums and things of that nature, but yes.
Do they take roll call and establish a quorum for the purposes of beginning the meeting?
No.
So we won't know what members of the committee, other than they each have an identification number, were present.
They put in, so in this meeting, one of the task force members was sick and they sent a proxy. So at the bottom of the list, it says, you know, task force member 10 was not there. So task force number 22 was subbing in. They're not putting any names in, but I guess that's the way they're handling that.
All right, thank you very much.
Sure. DCNR has said they are taking a people-centered approach with this park, not a conservation and preservation approach. So it's more about what this land can do for the Pennsylvania residents as far as recreation and education. They are pushing the Underground Railroad and Freedom Seeker angle more than the Native Americans that actually lived on the land. The master plan is to provide the possibilities and needs for the park. Areas of focus will include natural resource management, safe public access, which is a principal need, park services, visitor satisfaction, and recreation and environmental education. Our second meeting will be all about natural resource management, and meetings 3 through 5 will focus on accessibility, park services, visitor satisfaction and safety, and then recreation and environmental education.
Sorry, I want to just, when I think about that, maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but is that one of those meetings when they talk about people-centric? Are you going to be talking about the actual facilities that will be installed there? Like they're going to be parking lots and camping grounds and water slides and swimming pools and.
So the campground is not part of the master plan, which means we will not be discussing it. However, DCNR did say that they are continuing to do research and studies to decide what kind of and how big and if it's needed, what they're going to do as far as camping is concerned, but it will not be part of our master plan discussions at all.
How do you define camping need?
I don't know. Ask DCNR.
That was a kind of rhetorical question.
They're doing what they're calling their own studies and research to determine what the decision will be as far as what kind of camping will go in and how big it will be if it goes in at all. Did you want to interject? Eileen.
Eileen, please come.
I just wanted to say also, it's interesting because when we try to get to any kind of detail or nitty gritty, we're reminded that this is a 30,000 view for the master plan, that they don't get into that detail because we tried to understand exactly where they wanted to locate things. And I remember John saying, oh, we've taken some of this stuff out. Like you're not going to see any more of that detailed area for where they were going to do the camping.
Because it's problematic?
Yeah,
or
I think so.
Not because they're not doing it. It's just problematic to be public about it.
Right. And it makes it easier for us to, you know, say that we don't agree with what they're doing as task force members.
Potentially delay anything.
Exactly. So they're not letting us see any of the smaller details. So while we'll discuss parking lots, we probably won't see where those will go
And another thing is when we were talking about habitat, we were pushing for members of the Natural Heritage Program
Yes.
that did all of the surveys there to participate like on the task force with DCNR or within DCNR. And I don't think they're coming, but we keep on asking.
We specifically asked for them to be at the next meeting because the next meeting is supposed to be all about natural resource management.
Mhm.
So we did make the request to have the Natural Heritage Program. You don't have to leave. We did have them, we asked for the Natural Heritage Program to be there because they're the ones that did the original DCNR study, and they're the ones that showed in their big map that the entire park is inside either critical or supporting habitat.
And we said, how can you do anything?
Right.
In its entirety.
Can I ask you just a basic question? DCNR, don't they have a responsibility to the environment? Isn't that part of their remit?
Conservation and natural resources.
Yeah, so I'm just confused how we went from that's not the focus
Because I'll
to
tell you,
more people.
I'll tell you,
Okay.
parks are for people. And that's what parks people say. Parks are for people. And parks are people are to enjoy the area. We are bringing people here so they can see it. We love it so much that we are going to possibly destroy it.
Yeah, you don't destroy it.
Well, understood, but that's the mentality. I've worked with parks for 13 years in the state of Delaware, and that's how I don't work there anymore because they kindly showed me well, they didn't show me the door, but
Was there anything in the original deed from George Sturbridge? Is there anything, because this was the purpose of this property was to be a preserve.
no, he said it could be a park.
He said, so yeah, we poured over all of the sale documents. We've had lawyers look at the sale documents. There's nothing in there to help us as far as that's concerned.
Because I thought, what?
But I have a hunch that he didn't realize that was what was going to happen because when it was purchased as part of the preserve. And it's very, as far as I know, uncommon to take something that's put into a preserve and turn it into a park.
Right.
So I think he wasn't so worried about the wording because he thought it was safe being part of the White Clay Creek Preserve and never even had an inkling that they were going to not make it a preserve.
I mean, what person now is ever going to leave any piece of property to be preserved?
They can do whatever they want with it at this point.
Yeah. So at the end of this process, what is it that this task force or DCNR is going to deliver to, to the municipalities that are impacting? What is the product that they're going to produce?
Did you finish reading?
We basically covered what was the rest of this. Other than that, John Hollis stated that we will explore overnight camping in the future. So that's not off the table, but right. So, the whole purpose is to help guide their master plan process and then they will present the master plan later. But we're guiding, we're not actually seeing any decisions that are being made behind the scenes. They're going to say, okay, thank you for your input. And then they're going to go do what they want.
So essentially the master plan, if you can think of it like a skeleton, and they have literally said, this is what goes into a master plan when you're planning for parks. These are the areas we're interested in. Tell us, and then, I mean, I have to give it to them, though. They did try to say, provide us all of your questions, concerns, comments, thoughts, everything. Yeah, right on and everything like that. But at the end of the day, this is our master plan. This is the outline of it. This is what we're interested in pursuing. And this is how we're going to filter through that, all of the questions. And if we don't agree, and I've seen John do this a couple of times, he'll say, noted or thank you, or we're gonna like that's the
right, and then move on.
Yeah. So
when are you meeting next?
May 20, hold on one
My
second.
phone with me.
I have it.
It's the end of next month, I think. It's every 2 months.
May 22nd
May 22nd.
at 6 p.m.
And where do you meet?
at the White Clay
It's-
Meeting House. Oh, shit.
I'm just
Whatever.
kidding.
The White Clay Meeting House over on White Clay Creek Preserve.
They had they had 4 officers there?
There were 2 roaming and 2 at the doors, yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Yep.
She was talking about the park rangers.
So you had park
The
rangers.
armed park rangers in there. Yes.
They wouldn't let it.
They wouldn't let Eric Rowe, our county commissioner, in they barred him at the door. But there were two on either side of the door as you walked in, and there were two roaming the grounds. They were all armed and they did have, their vests and everything on.
How ridiculous.
So they had what,
They had
bulletproof
security.
vests on?
Yes.
Barring elected officials from entering the meeting. Like this is,
They did have their
Very-
hands on their guns when I walked up to the door, so.
this is incredibly bizarre. This is,
It's
we're,
intimidation tactics.
I just think it's interesting that we're talking about a park service. We're not talking about a
Well,
paramilitary
they also had-
organization.
They also had it closed to the public and closed to the stakeholders, but they had DCNR supporting staff. And there was so much supporting staff that there was actually not enough room in the parking lot for the task force members to park. So they filled the room, the tables were set up in a U for the task force members, and then the entire room, 3 walls, were full of chairs that were all DCNR supporting staff
Yeah.
surrounding us with
So-
our backs to them.
And if people want to know who's there, at least representing the other townships, we encourage people to look at the meeting minutes from when people got
Right.
voted.
So
Yeah.
all the township officials that are on the task force are in your meeting minutes, but
they added more of their own.
they added more of their own, and we're not supposed to tell anybody who these people are for their safety and privacy.
Which is ridiculous.
Because apparently there was an issue with one of the senators trying to get a representative on the task force and was turned down by 3 different people before they finally got someone that would accept the nomination because they were concerned about their safety for such a hot button issue.
Yep. Okay.
So.
All right. Well, May 22nd, we get to do it again.
I don't want you to lose heart, but I hope you can look at these meetings, our board meetings. What did you come into and talk to us after you have your meetings? It's just an opportunity to get the message out, let people know what's going on. So I know this is really difficult. I know it can be very frustrating. But I think I would like to use this board meeting as an opportunity to keep on getting the message out to the public. I know there's other things that are happening, but I think this would be a good place for you to just say, bring back your messages. And
Okay.
we'll make sure it's on it's on YouTube. We'll get it in our meeting minutes, but at least it's a place that people know they can go to figure out what's going on.
And I do encourage, as soon as those meeting minutes or transcription is available for everybody, I know it's a long thing because it was a 3-hour meeting, but please sit down and actually read it. Because there's a lot of,
Because I don't care.
huh?
Can I tell them my number? I don't.
Oh, I mean, I guess we could. I don't even,
16.
what did that make me 15, right?
Yes, you're.
Yeah, so I'm number 15 and she's number 16 in the transcriptions.
Well,
We did it to ourselves. We're fine with it.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Camille, I know her. I mean, I was reading and I knew
You can tell who, so when you're reading, if you know the people that, if you have an inkling about who's on the board, you can tell
yeah.
who is who.
Yeah, but
Um,
we're not interested in outing anybody who doesn't want to be outed.
No,
But I appreciate your
I
courage in
don't-
standing up.
And it'd be nice if you knew what I said at the meeting, so. I'm-
Absolutely.
Right, we're fine. We're not saying anything that we're not going to stand behind, so.
Yeah, I
Right.
appreciate your courage
Yeah.
in doing that. You don't want to hide.
We don't,
Uh,
and I don't think anybody should, but that's
No.
not our decision to make. And a lot of the people that are on the task force do not want their names involved, so. That's
No,
their
I
choice.
understand. I
Um,
certainly understand.
But there's a lot of stuff that are in those minutes that people should read. And I think what I'll do when they are available is I'll be highlighting key sections and posting them online.
Perfect.
So for the people that don't want to read the whole thing, at least that'll get some information out there.
Great. Thank you.
So after the minutes come out and the public has a chance to read them, because
Mm-hmm.
they'll be posted somewhere in a number of places. Are there comments or are there opinions? Do they get back to this task force and they get back to the meetings?
So we were told that as task force members, it is our job to be the ones pushing the transparency and building the trust back with DCNR for the public. So we're supposed to be trying to encourage you all to trust them. Not sure how that works, but that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Good job.
Thanks. So I personally, I know I take a lot when it comes to the comments. So I will be taking the comments that come to me to the meeting and doing my best with them. But a lot of the times, honestly, when he looks at me and I'm speaking to John Hollis, you can tell he's just not listening and just goes, thank you for your,
Yeah.
I'll take it under consideration. And then he just walks past me.
Yeah, but it would
Um,
be the minutes.
So no, a lot of those conversations happen off to the side. So there were sidebar conversations and those are not in the minutes.
Well, make sure you have, say during
Yeah,
the
you
meeting.
can't-
Yeah.
Yeah, so you, so.
No, I didn't do it to begin with.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, but that's not, that's like, we'll do that, right? We'll have a
Right.
sidebar conversation and then we'll, Don will say, Dave said that just to get it on the minutes.
Right.
Right. So it's a skill. You just do it,
Well, yeah.
Well, it's interesting because they're very, depending on who's speaking, will determine, like, we try not to talk over each other. We certainly try to, raise our hand. It's not like we're raucous or anything, even though some people are told not to be raucous when they're not being raucous. It's so far, it's only been one meeting, so far things have been fine, but meeting minutes are supposed to be the decisions of the meeting. There were no real decision of the meeting except for what the next meeting we're gonna really focus on. It was more, oh, hey, you people, this is how we do a master plan. This
It's an organizational meeting.
Yeah,
Right.
it's very much that.
But I don't see there being any decisions made in these meetings.
But Antia, you should think of the best way. I mean, you don't want 1,000 comments coming to you 1,000 different ways. I don't know what the
Unfortunately-
best way of getting it to you is, but if we can think of a way to help you consolidate them.
Wonderful. Unfortunately for me, everybody and their brother now has
They
my
already
cell
have
phone
yours.
number, my email address, and the Facebook page. So I do, it's okay, I manage, but it would be nice, like, if everything could be funneled through one place or, another, and just kind of weed out all the
Set up a new
comments.
Gmail account. maybe,
Yeah.
or
Something.
I don't know.
So yeah, I don't know. If people can email me through the Save Big Elk Creek website, that's probably the best way to do it.
But if you have questions as well, I would.
Oh, you guys feel free,
Reach out to
because I-
either one of us and we would totally bring those.
Oh,
questions.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I emailed you the notes from the two of us. We worked together, put them together for you, and then I sent the email, and I wasn't sure, other than Dave, I wasn't sure who received them. Because you were the only person that replied, but we'll try to do that for every meeting. That way you guys have notes ahead of time before I even walk in here with an agenda, so that if you have questions that you need addressed, I can at least address them at the meeting. It gives me a little bit of time.
And maybe Jeff can put that on our website too.
Yeah.
If anybody has comments, do it through the Big Elk Creek.
The Save Big Elk Creek website.
Yeah.
And I will say that I am working on, because I think it's important to keep the public informed. You want me to answer that right now?
Up to you. If you don't have an answer, I understand.
What's the question?
Is DCNR doing this for credits for the other state properties? So this is going back to the fact that the property is a mitigation property.
Oh my gosh.
You don't have to answer.
You don't have to answer.
I would say at this point,
it-
I don't know that, I know some of the stuff they're doing is for mitigation, yes. The campground, as far as I know, is not for mitigation purposes. I read, it's over 4,000 pages, and I've been slowly reading the entire document about the mitigation. There is nothing in there about mitigating for a campground. They've not taken a campground away from somewhere else where they would need to replace it. The only thing that I saw in the mitigations in regards to this park is the acreage of open space and maybe some forest land that needed to be accounted for. There wasn't technically any recreational
So-
things that needed to be, other than some trails that needed to be mitigated. There was one small playground, but they had mentioned in the document that they would be putting the playground at another location, not at Big Elk Creek.
So what you're talking about is, and I don't have all the details or maybe all of the vocabulary correct, but we had preserves and parkland that DCNR either sold or leased to fracking companies.
They leased to gas and oil companies, yes.
Right,
It
so
was
they-
it was state forest land.
Right, so you have and so the way they get around being able to, well, the way they are able to do that and sell those forest lands or lease them is by creating new parks and services, right? So we're gonna replace one
So-
acre with another acre.
They only have to do that because they used land that was purchased with federal funding.
Okay,
So it's only because it was purchased with federal funding, and with that comes a specific timeline that they have to mitigate. I believe it's 5 years
Mhm.
from the moment that they leased that land that was federally funded to an oil or gas company. to the time where that mitigation is complete, I think is a 5-year time span. So before they even owned the big Elk Creek properties, they were already using them or planned to use them in the documents as a mitigation property for these.
But should
these
that help
things.
us?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking,
Right, you would think it would help us.
Go mitigate some open space and some forest and yeah, go. Like, we'll be that, just don't.
But they
Ruin it.
so because the land that they're mitigating was, 100 acres here or 200 acres there, and this property is it's not large, but as large as it is, there's extra land that's not part of that they don't need, that they're using as they can use it as a credit for later mitigations. So if they decide they want to take something away from somewhere else that was federally funded, they can technically use this as the offset.
Right, but it should be.
But there are no
it should be strewn
restrictions.
with
But there
it.
are no restrictions
restrictions
as
What they
to-
can do with it.
You can mitigate it with the land, but there's no restrictions what they do with the land, right?
technically, yes, as long as it's serving the public and giving them public access.
Access.
It's all about access. And so that's the
All right, well,
the
thank
long and
you.
short of it.
Thank you for the update.
Just to ask a question. Concerns you talking about.
He needs a mic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, so for people who don't know me, I'm the chairman of the Historical Commission of Franklin Township. You were talking briefly about DCNR's interest in the Mason-Dixon line in terms of its impact in slavery and freedom seekers, and I know that they're aware of this. Did they express any interest in the Mason-Dixon line as a premier scientific achievement of the 1700s?
No,
In the survey, which and there are between White Lake Creek and Big Elk several important historic markers and several regular milestones associated with the Mason-Dixon line.
Anything historic had to do with the Underground Railroad, which was, I believe, not there.
it was not.
No, it was not there. And there's really no evidence of significant Underground Railroad activity in the townships bordering the Mason-Dixon line.
That is their only concern as far as tying in historical. It was all about the Underground Railroad and freedom seekers and how they're going to tie it into this area.
Yeah, I would just for the
And they're
public,
ignoring the historical buildings and the ruins that are on the property.
yeah, which
And
I made
the-
the report for that.
And I believe it was the Lenni Lenape that lived on the property before.
Yeah,
any-
the Lenape would have probably been the tribe
Right.
most active in the area.
So
Because they're ignoring that does not mean that we won't be raising that issue over and over.
that's true. We
So
do.
there's one other thing I'd just like to mention, should you discuss historic issues, and that's the creation of the park itself, the acquisitions of the land mainly by Willie DuPont to create what has become the park. I suspect there's probably, and I can't say this for sure, but there's probably an interesting economic discussion. He bought out a lot of farmers. He bought out the farmers in the Depression. So there's a tale there of farming and its hardships and how people who lived in this area had to make very specific choices to decide to sell their land, to get up and to move on so that they could, live a better life. And I know there are some really interesting documents because he did let, Willie DuPont did let some of the property owners live there after he purchased their land until they died. And then they went in and they cut to Joyce, making the buildings uninhabitable. And there are some funny letters that have been discovered by Emily Kilby. But anyway, there's another story there.
If there's information that you have or a document that you have that you can send to me that I can take to these meetings.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have that because until I worked with members of Elk Township and Emily Kilby and some others to pull together the information. There was no inventory of historic resources in the park. So we didn't have names to work with and that
Right.
sort of thing. So I wish I could.
I was to say, if there's anything that you can send to me that I can, you know, if you have the stories and you have just what you told us, that's something.
Yeah, no,
that you write
I
down.
understand that, but what I'm telling you is to some degree logical inference, but not necessarily documented. And so from my point of view, it's not a story yet. It's something that would need a lot more research. And I've only got about 5 pots on the stove currently.
I'm not saying that you need to do the research. I mean, they have people that should be doing the research.
Yeah,
but
I know.
Doesn't the state have historians that can?
But I mean, it seems to me that there's an important story there,
I
an
agree.
interesting one.
And if there's other stuff, like I said, the more you can provide me to take to these meetings, the better armed I am to argue our case.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't
right.
give you the story I would really like to be able to give you.
Right.
But there is, all right, I mean, I can give you way too much Mason-Dixon line information.
And that's fine too. I mean, the more I can give them, give me everything you have and I'll take it because.
There's a pamphlet out there
Okay.
that you can take that's like a 4-page summary on the work on the Mason-Dixon line.
Because that's not been brought up as part of their concern for educational and historic purposes.
Yeah, that's a really great story to tell.
Yes.
And
appropriate.
appropriate. And, you know, when they made the survey, they had to cut about 25 feet of trees down on either side of the survey line so they could see where they were going, because it was largely forested land. And so, and one of the things that people don't really understand is they did it on a line of latitude, and a line of latitude, when it's any other line but the equator, is not a true straight line across the surface of the earth. It's a curved line. And you can actually see this when you play with Google Maps sometimes, but I won't do that now. And so there are lots of interesting things, but I would say start with that pamphlet. And if you have questions about something, I'll be happy to answer them. You can get my email from the township.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Cynthia. Thank you,
Thank you.
Eileen. Appreciate, stay positive, hang in there. All right, Donna.
Great. So I'm going to ask for an MS4 update. Do I get that from you, Jeff?
Yes, ma'am. I'll try and keep it short. Thanks to the staff here, Melissa, Stacy, and I'll say me as well. We were able to find some very key documents that Reagan Engineering and Pennoni were looking for, and in regards to the 2020 TMDL plan that they had submitted. So that is a very good thing. The second item is Reagan Engineering represents 3 other townships with MS4, which is New London, London Britain, and London Grove. So with those submittals from Ron and the responses back, there was less than a dozen minor comments, which I think is great as far as DEP is concerned. The other item is there seems to be a stream bank restoration load reduction rate of 44.88 pounds per yard per year per foot. So this translates directly into cost savings that could save about 40% of what it had been previously thought. Next week, Pennoni, Reagan Engineering, and myself, along with Melissa and Donna, we would like to have a meeting next week to go over some key paperwork and then talk about reaching out to DEP in the future. But we want to have this meeting first. You can try. I don't know if I'll have an answer.
Works. Okay. So my one question is this stream bank restoration or engineering, are they suggesting to cut down trees along the stream bank? Is this their plan? Was this the engine? Oh,
opposite.
I know, but there's this one particular company that's going around to the townships telling them how they can save on stormwater, MS4 issues by doing this engineering that actually cuts down the trees, and Stroud is going out of its mind. Okay.
Generally speaking, it's either tree planting.
Right, okay.
Or they'll do something where they harden the.
Stream banks.
Stream banks, but it's not, you don't cut away.
Right,
trees.
logically, you wouldn't think, yes. And then the other is there any chance to get a credit for stormwater retention because of the amount of open space that you do have in your open space program in the township? I'm just,
So, doesn't help you, the more open space you have, because that's just land that you,
that soaks up water.
It doesn't, that's not really the issue. It's more about what. Sorry, I'm speaking off mic. So some townships have gotten some relief from MS4 requirements because they have farmland, and that farmland already manages their stormwater. In Franklin, for whatever reason, that land was not exempt or removed from the plan.
It actually hurts us.
It actually hurts, yeah. So it's like the open space and all of that doesn't necessarily help you. It's just looking at the water and how much of it flows through. Yeah.
I just want to comment on something that Jeff said, and I look at it as really positive. So we're lucky now that we work with Ron, who is, as you said, Jeff, has put in plans for 3 other townships and has gotten good responses, which shows that his thinking and his approach is something that we can have confidence in. And so I'm really hopeful that we can create a plan that's going to be it's going to be effective, which is important, but also a lot less expensive than what we had previously thought we'd have to spend. So, so far, so good. There's no report. Oh, this next one. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Planning Commission, no report. The April meeting was canceled. Thanks, Dave. I was like, what report?
The Historic Commission and HARB report. Paul Agassi.
Thank you. Right. Thank you. So you have a number of things, the supervisors have a number of things in their book, but I would just like to note that there will be a talk in New London that we co-sponsor with the New London Area Historical Society on May 9th, 7 p.m., entitled Retracing Mason and Dixon's Enduring Line. It will be given by Edith Kilby-Bacon and Emily Kilby, and Emily is the noted local Fair Hill historian. They visited all the mile markers on the Pennsylvania-Maryland line east of the Susquehanna. So that's basically from the tri-state marker, if any of you know where that is, all the way out to the Susquehanna. And they chose that stretch because it happens to be Cecil County's boundary. There is, unfortunately, but also another likely to be interesting talk the same night at sponsored by the Oxford Area Historical Association, and that's again May 9th at 7 p.m. And that will be at the Vista Ridge Pavilion at the Ware community, and it's going to be the covered bridges of the Oxford area, and the speaker happens to be Sarah Beth Kohut, who is a member of our historical commission. So she's just published a book on local bridges. And finally, I want to note that the Mason-Dixon Historical Interpretation and Connectivity Plan, actually that's Mason-Dixon Art Corner, will have a public meeting in May. Most of the committee meetings involve only the members, and this meeting is designed to solicit responses from the public. It will be May 21st. They changed the date to the 21st after looking at some of the conflicts, and it will be from 7 to 8:30, and it will be on Zoom, and we'll be able to get that information to the township when We have all the details. This will give the public an opportunity to learn what's been taking place in the discussions concerning the project so far, and to have some input about what they would be interested in seeing. So far, the plan is largely focused on the historic resources that might be included in any kind of ultimate trail plan that comes out of this. And it's still very much a work in progress at the moment. I will note that in your packet, there was a survey, and they are interested to hear from supervisors and staff members in the township, and I can act as someone who would convey that information back to the Brandywine Conservancy, since they're managing this whole project. If you want to fill that out, and if you can just scan it to me, there's no need to sign it or anything like that. This is, as you can see from the responses that were already in there, it's a kind of an anonymous thing, but it's just trying to get a sense of things. And that's all.
Thank you, Paul. All right, Jim.
All right, the next item is regarding a merger between our audit firm BBD and a company called Witham Smith and Brown. We received an email a couple weeks ago to let us know that this merger was happening on April 1st. And to conform with the general audit standards of their practice, they wanted us to reply to them with consent to, the real meaning of it is so that BBD can share the files with the new firm as their one. So with that, does anybody have any comments before I read a proposed motion?
Maybe just a comment to Melissa. Melissa, you're very happy with our auditors, right? So I think you've done well.
Yes,
So you want us to continue to work with them?
yes.
Okay.
We have 1 year left on our current contract with,
This year, and then 2024's audit in 25, right?
right,
And then we'd be looking at, we'd be
renewing
reviewing
this,
them in
Yeah.
Potentially.
potential.
Right.
hopefully.
Okay.
The only other thing I said, these things happen all the time, and they say they're going to keep their Philadelphia office.
Okay.
So I don't think anything's going to change.
Is this a merger or an acquisition? It says merger,
It
but
says-
sometimes it's an acquisition.
Well, yeah, Witham Smith and Brown are bigger than BBD.
Okay, so we might be calling this, we might be changing the
The
name. of our
name
auditor.
might change,
Okay.
yeah, but we'll see. Yeah.
Okay,
The name Whitmer, just in the beginning.
Changing the whole
Witham.
name? Oh,
Witham.
just,
yeah.
with them.
There's Smith Brown.
Okay.
With them,
Okay,
to the new email.
I didn't know.
address.
okay. Okay.
okay. Anybody else?
No.
All right, so I'll read a proposed motion. I make a motion to conform with auditing standards that we allow Franklin Township's financial records to be shared between our current auditing firm BBD and the Witham Smith and Brown company, so they can continue to provide us with audit services. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Dave, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
All right. All right, thank you, Jim. All right, so now we'd like to move over to our road program overview. I'm not sure if we're going to discuss anything other than the roadside mowing.
I do have an update about the other if you wish
Okay,
to have
so
it.
why don't we start with that and then we can talk about the roadside mowing.
I just wanted to thank Melissa for working with PennDOT. Our bid package has now been approved through PennDOT, and we will be advertising that. We are shooting for a possible bid award at the May 15th meeting.
Okay.
So this work will involve the paving portion of it. And then as far as the infiltration pits go, or stormwater management pits, they will be their own bid packages.
Okay.
So nothing's changed from the work that we've discussed at meetings before.
Okay. All right, so now you want me, I have this motion here for the 2024 roadside mowing brush removal bid package award. I make a motion that the board award the 2024 roadside mowing and brush removal bid package to J. Dominic Durazio Incorporated, aka Yardworks, as presented by Jeff Eastburn, requiring Yardworks to submit their performance bond and insurance certificate as detailed in the 2024 bid package. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Donna. All right, do we have any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. All right, motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Township event updates. The Franklin Fall Festival is coming September 14th. And who's going to talk about that?
Do we have any updates on where we're at?
Why don't you start, Stacy?
I was gonna say, we had a wonderful meeting. Stacy's going crazy with her stuff that she's working on. And we have music already taken care of. And is the letter ready to be looked at?
Yes.
We have a letter that's getting ready to go out to all the vendors, the potential vendors and potential sponsors. We just got that ready. We can look at tonight. And oh gosh, we talked about so many things. Did you get a chance to talk to Guy about the?
We're working on that. We'll have more later.
Okay.
Promise.
And Jeff has been diligently working with all this year's theme is agriculture. So he's been working with a lot of the local farmers, and we're trying to get not only new modern equipment, but now he's got maybe a line on some old steam engines and some antique engines, which would be very cool as well. So we've got a mechanical bull we're looking at. We've got some guys that are going to do roping. Show.
I can promise the board that we have been in extensive talks with our insurance company. We're a hair's breadth from putting the stamp of approval on it. It's been an interesting challenge.
I know it'll be fun. Just
Yeah.
there we go. Sounds good.
I guess it's as bad as a bounce house. So, Stacy, you have anything to add?
Just we're working on collecting vendors and like Dawn had said, our sponsorship letter, which we have tonight for you all to put your signature on. We had sent it to you a few days ago to review, and we tweaked it, and we're pretty happy with it to be signed. So thank you.
Did we decide just one date?
Yes.
Okay, we did make a big decision. We decided to go with one date, rain or shine, and call it if it was really bad rain. So we just figured by the time we tried to reinvent the wheel and do it the week, you can't ask people to, at that time of year, say they're going to do 2 weeks in a row. So we decided to have a rain or shine event. So. Okay, anything else? Okay.
Thanks. The next thing is the Franklin Township cleanup recap.
Yeah.
John, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I will. I conducted the program on Saturday, April 20th. I got to township about 7:30 for an 8 o'clock event. Stacy Hollis and her daughter came in early also and assisted me with copying the safety briefing, which is an 18-point briefing on things that they should be aware of for their own personal safety as they're out there. And also Stacy assisted me with signing the people in on the release form. We did have 18 participants. 8 of them were FSA members. I'd say probably 14, 15 of them had participated before, so there was a lot of experience from prior road programs in the group that conducted that. And I think that really contributed to the success, because I think overall this was probably the most effective one that we have conducted over the years. And I think the experience factor was a key item. Also, I got a little better organized, and I established road segments that I could easily assign rather than just let people pick where they wanted to go. I just assigned it to them, and that worked out a lot better. Um, let's see. We also, interesting, we had 3 participants come down from Westchester, which obviously didn't live in the township. And they're very enthusiastic, and they did clean up Old Schoolhouse Road for us. Subsequently, I did get to meet them again on election day. For some reason, they were at our polls, and I went over and talked to them and properly thanked them for their effort. And there was a question about their truck had a Texas license plate. Everybody's wondering what that was. And one of the guys said he just moved from Houston, so that answered that question. Related to the material that was picked up, again, one of the groups found a large cache of 150 empty sample bottles of Fireball. Last year, somebody picked up 300 of them. Apparently, that's a popular beverage for people
That's a problem. Yeah.
to consume there. Also, the other report we had on Flint Hill Road, there was a large cache of beer cans at various locations along the road, and the traffic behavior related to speed was pretty bad on that road. So Supervisor Johnson was the collector there. He might want to speak further about the traffic issues. So overall, I think we had a really good program, and everybody was happy when we're done. So,
all right. Great job as always, John. Thank you again for volunteering to do that again, another year.
no, it's good. I always enjoy it, and it's to see people enjoy picking up this stuff. They're very pleased to do that. So
Great. Thank you. All right, Jim.
All right, next item, Guy Donatelli is on for the solicitor's report.
Good evening. I think Stan Corbett and I are going to tag team this. This is going to be a discussion of sort of a confluence of the legal issues that need to be addressed, along with some of the infrastructure and timing issues from the engineering side. So I'm going to defer to a discussion by Stan of the engineering components first, and then I can discuss, if I need to, the issues relating to a proposed tripartite agreement and the establishment of some accounts for the purposes of making sure that the funds that are ultimately generated through the operation of the system are appropriately segregated between the ratepayers and Keystone, and then at the appropriate time, whether the payments for the operator and other costs are appropriately apportioned between the township and Keystone. So that's what I have from a legal perspective. I did meet with my partner, Mr. Pompo. He generated a couple of emails that I know were distributed. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Corbett, and then I'll fill in if anything he says requires a legal patina, so to speak.
Thank you, Guy. I believe the board has a copy of the report I provided last week, which provides an update on all the key issues related to Lexington Point that we've been tracking for some time now. Although I'd be happy to answer any questions about that report, I thought I would use this opportunity to fill the board in on some developments that have transpired since that report was generated, which may be of particular note. As was noted in the report, at that time we had anticipated a scheduled, what I'll call final inspection for punch list / preliminary startup, which occurred yesterday at the site. Was not as successful perhaps as the contractor had hoped. We did not necessarily find any significant problems, but we did find a number of things that that still need to be addressed before we could call the plant substantially complete or think about moving forward with any additional steps. None of them are, I would characterize them all as kind of crossing T's and dotting I's with some of the hardware out there. We didn't see anything that appeared to be of concern, either with the components that are installed or the workmanship. It's just there's a lot there that they were trying to get wrapped up the details for kind of at the last minute. So Not unusual for a project like this at all. We're going to regroup in approximately 2 weeks and take another stab at having a run through all that and see where things stand at that point. The as Guy mentioned, there's a number of legal considerations related to Lexington Point. As the board knows, there's a very detailed agreement between the township and the developer, which describes a lot of things related to the wastewater treatment plant, starting from planning all the way through construction and operations and all the developer's obligations throughout that entire life cycle. We're at a point where once the plant is technically adequate, which, as I mentioned, we have verified yesterday, we're not quite there yet. The next step technically could be to move forward with a startup with DEP representatives present. At this point, it appears that the technical concerns are not going to be the driving factor on the timing. I think it's possible those could all be resolved within a month. The legal concerns and the associated administrative things that need to go along with that, as defined by the agreement, are kind of behind schedule. Most of that are things that have been on the developer's plate for some time. I think, as I discussed with the board last time I joined the meeting, we had provided a memo in concert with Land Macro Lane last July that kind of outlined some of these key steps that need to be done. I subsequently prepared an update and a table to chart that out a little bit more clearly for the board. The only thing that is on the developer's to-do list to get between here and plant startup that has made some progress is the submission of a proposed wastewater treatment plant operator. As the board may recall, the agreement requires that any operator be approved by the township. They need to be in place before we have a startup with DEP. And at a prescribed period after startup, which will be at least 90 days after the plant is placed in service, the township would take over operation control of the system and hence direct control of the operator. So Guy had mentioned a tri-party agreement. I've been coordinating with Vince Pompo, both on the technical review of the proposed operator and the legal nuances of how this is all going to fit into the agreement between the developer and the township. And Vince had advised we've concluded that a tri-party agreement is probably going to be necessary to affect all those agreement requirements. I'll let Guy speak to any of the particulars of the legalese in that, but that's the basic structure that we're looking at right now.
Stan, before you go on, I thought that once the system went up, started to run, didn't the developer have to keep it going for a year before it came over to us? That's my understanding. You said 90 days. That's like, whoa.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if that was misleading. You're right. It does have to be before it is dedicated to the township, and the township actually takes ownership. One of the criteria is that it be in place in an operation for a full year. There's additional criteria as well. At least 75% of the units have been occupied. There's a number of financial milestones that the developer has to have met as well. So, but yeah, the simplest of those is that it has to be in service for at least one full year. When I mentioned turning over operational control, that's a different step. I guess I'll characterize it as an interim step. It's still it's still owned by the developer. The township, however, is basically taking over the administrative reins of operating and make sure it's running correctly. And at that point in time, the township would need to consider charging user fees to the residents out there as well. There's details in the agreement about how that fund would be handled because the developer is ultimately responsible for all costs that are not appropriately covered by user fees. There's a very limited number of homes out there right now, so any sewer fund is going to be operating in the red for quite some time, regardless of the details that are worked out, and that it's on the developer to make that whole for a pretty long period.
I'm confused again.
So I have a concern about that. So it seems like, okay, well, I have a couple of concerns. One is we're going to take operation of this plant before we have approved that it's functioning to our satisfaction, right? Meaning it's functioned for a year.
No, and I'm sorry if I
We're
wasn't
not
clear
going
on
to
that.
get ownership, but we're going to be responsible for running this thing.
Correct,
Okay.
but you're going to be responsible for running it, and there's a number of criteria
So-
that need to be in place before that responsibility transfers to the township, and one of them is very specific to something you just mentioned, that being the initial period before the township takes over operational responsibility is defined in the agreement, but I'll just characterize it as a shakedown period, if you will. It's a period where any hiccups can be worked out. Any additional odds and ends that need to be addressed are addressed. At the end of that period, AECom would review everything again, and if we feel that is in fact 100% ready to go operationally, we could issue what's called a certificate of final completion, meaning that we are out of that shakedown period, if you will.
So that shakedown period is not the year of operation.
Correct, it is not.
Okay, so here's my question. We are now operating this plant after whatever the period of time, let's say 90 days. We get all our ducks in a row, we take over this plant, and 180 days into this thing, the plant blows up, and the developer comes to the township and says, well, that's not my problem. You guys hired this plant operator to run your plant, and he was incompetent. Right. And then, so it's not now does this give the developer an out? Right. So they just simply say, well, you guys are operating. So the reason we're running this plant for a year before we take ownership is to make sure that the plant is robust. Exactly. Right. And somewhere in that period of time, right, within that period of time, we're going to be taking responsibility for the plant. Is my understanding. So
correct, yes.
Does that now say, well, any issues with the plant, it's Franklin Township's problem, not the developer's problem, because we haven't taken perhaps ownership, but we've taken responsibility for the plant, which kind of, if that's true, it obviates having it run for a year before we're satisfied.
I think, and I would invite Guy to jump in because some of this has to do with the specific agreement language. My understanding of the agreement is that the developer is responsible for any problems that crop up regardless.
Right.
However, if the problem is due to operator negligence and the operator at that point has been retained by the township, then yes, the township may have some responsibility.
And Mr. Chairman, the relationship between the township and the operator that's ultimately selected would guard against that to some extent, because the agreement would anticipate the responsibility of the operator to do its a job correctly, just like any consultant or any service provider for the township. So that is the purpose of the tripartite agreement, so that at some point, in a very defined way, the responsibility shifts, both the financial responsibility and any potential events in the future lay with Keystone for a particular period of time, and then at some point transfer to the township, who I would I would advise has some healthy indemnity provisions from the operator. So it's difficult to look at that in a vacuum. I mean, if the plant were to blow up for reasons unrelated to anybody's negligence, then you'd have a different scenario. So there will always be somebody responsible for that, and that's baked into, or will be baked into, the agreement that Mr. Pompo has circulated.
But we're moving from a year to like 90 days. This is going to happen very soon. Yeah.
I didn't think that the clock started yet, right?
Well,
Right.
I thought you said you talked about in another 2 weeks, you're going to come back and take a look at the punch list, and it's possible that a startup with a DEP rep would follow around that.
Yeah,
So we're
and
talking about this will
I'm
happen.
sorry, let me clarify that timing a little bit. As I mentioned, there's kind of two tracks towards when startup occurs. One is the technical, and I think it may be possible purely on the technical front that we could reach that point within a month. However, there's a lot of additional requirements per the agreement that have to be in place before that clock starts ticking. I don't think it's even remotely possible that that's going to happen within a month. If I had to speculate, and pure speculation, we're 2 to 3 months out before that clock would start ticking. And most of that is on the developer's plate to produce some action that's been on their plate for quite some time.
Okay.
So it'll be 2 to 3 months. I think you said, I know it's a speculation. I get that. Before the clock would start, and then another 3 months. So
Correct.
it's still 6 months. I mean, we got to get, and then we also have to start paying for it. They also have to start, because that's a whole administrative, we have to figure out how much it's cost. We don't even know how much it should be charging the folks yet, because we're still waiting for numbers from somebody. And then we have to hire somebody here, right? To this is not that 6 months isn't that long to make this stuff happen.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the next steps are for us to come up with our plan to hire and manage the payment processing. So we would need to hire probably an external firm to handle the payment processing and management of the plant.
And what about this 75% of?
I'm sorry, I missed that, Supervisor Dowling.
No, just that also 75% of the units have to be sold. So that's for the end dedication.
That's for the legal dedication to
The
the
end,
township. Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
That's not the first dedication.
When do the occupants start to pay for this? What part of the timeline?
The way the agreement has it charted out, that would be after the township takes operational control of the township. And as we discussed, that is before the township accepts dedication of the system.
Like 6 months.
So, based upon the timeline that we were just speculating on, in about 6 months, yes.
There aren't enough houses there to pay for it.
So in that interim period, does the township, do we pay for it?
No.
With our?
No.
So the entire cost of operating this unit has to come from that development. We cannot use any other taxpayers' money to pay for that development's processing.
But there's not enough houses to do it.
So you have to, I mean, the way it's going to get paid for is you take the cost of running the unit and divide it by the number of people using. So it's going to be a big bill until they can, dilute it with other residents.
It does say here, the developer's responsible for the operating and maintenance costs prior to dedication. So there's they have, Stan, do I have this right? They're going to have to contribute to the running. It's not all going to come from the houses. Am I reading this? Yes.
Correct. They're going to be, it's not the correct term, but they're going to be the single biggest ratepayer out there for quite some time to make the budget whole. Yes.
So is there so one of the things that we're kind of struggling with this is the timeline. Is there a way we can get a more concrete timeline, or is it kind of contingent on Keystone finalizing their agreements and then we can establish a timeline? Because we have a lot of big steps that we need to take, and we can't really take those until we know what it is we need to do. So I guess I can stop there.
No, I can certainly appreciate that. A lot of the key information that would go into developing what a user rate may be rests on data that the developer owes the township.
Okay.
So we do not have that information. We could not even begin to compile what may be an accurate user fee at this time.
So I guess here's my I guess question is, we are going to need time, right, to line up all of these ducks. Is that part of do we have the authority, or I don't know what the right word is, to say, okay, well, now that we have this data, we're going to need 3 months to figure out how we're going to process the payments and who we're going to hire to run this plant, and then we can start our 90 days. Because this is going to be new for our staff to handle, and I don't think it's obvious exactly what our approach is going to be. We have some ideas already, but my concern is it's going to be hey, here's all the data you've asked for, and in 90 days, yeah, good luck. So do we have that opportunity to say, okay, we need actually the time now to figure this out?
Yeah, and actually
Yes.
that's baked
Okay.
into the requirements
Perfect.
before startup, before DEP goes out there, before we all agree, okay, flip the switch is placed online. All of that information has to be provided by the developer. We'll review and provide recommendations to the board. The board
Okay.
will have to make the decisions. Ultimately, what a user fee per home out there will have to be established before they ever flip the switch and start the plant.
All right, so even though technically it could be, you could do it in a month, it's not likely it will happen in a month.
I would
The
venture to say it's
DEP
impossible
But
because of the legal obligations.
Hey, Stan, does do you or the township have a requirement to do this technical approval? Like, why wouldn't we keep that as leverage until we get everything? Why would we do that next month? Ahead of all the other things that the developer needs to do?
The technical
Can I
review, the
make
inspection.
can I make a suggestion with respect to Supervisor Johnson's question? Because it may involve some legal advice that I would prefer to give
I'm here.
During an appropriate executive session. I mean, it's a good question, and how we approach it strategically is something we should all discuss, perhaps offline. That's my suggestion.
Okay.
We're all good with that. Thanks, guys.
Stan, was there anything with the problems with the frac tank this past weekend out there? Can you elaborate on that, please?
Yes, that was on my list to discuss with the board. As the board is aware, perhaps painfully aware, there's been the pump and haul going on out there for quite some time. It's been going on for long enough that the frac tank has become fairly corroded. There's been a number of what I would characterize as minor weeps that have developed, just a very tiny drip if you look at it. And, those are things that have been caught in our routine inspections, patched up, no big deal. What we had happen over the last weekend, however, was a pretty significant leak. We've been inspecting Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays out there. We were out there last Friday. There was no problem. At some point over the weekend, a leak did apparently develop. It was caught by the contractor on Sunday. We were notified Monday morning about it, at which point they already had a tanker truck on the way to pump it out and had it pumped out and promptly repaired. It was a pretty substantial leak. There's no way to accurately quantify the amount of loss, but looking at the size of the leak, the contractor was able to provide a video of what was emanating from the leak in the tank. Best guess is somewhere between 500 and 1,000 gallons of wastewater. Because of the nature of that discharge, we were obligated to file a report with DEP. It's a report that they call an SSO, stands for Sanitary Sewer Overflow. I spoke with the DEP staff on Tuesday about that, filed the report accordingly. I don't know if they will be following up. It's I wouldn't want to characterize sewage discharge like this as something to not be concerned about. However, in the world of public sewer, it does happen sometimes, for better or worse. So it's bad. We want to avoid it at all costs, but I don't want the board to be overly alarmed and think it's it's a 5-alarm fire drill.
Yeah, so thank you for that. It's good to put that in context. I guess my concern is when you said they repaired the tank, but it sounds, and I'm just inferring from what you had just said, that they've been patching this tank, and then they repaired the tank. Does that tank need to get replaced? Because I guess the point would be is if it happens again, the DEP would probably be annoyed with us.
Yeah, ideally it should be replaced, but we may be just months away from eliminating it altogether. So it's difficult to I think enforce that on the developer. What we have done, however, is we now have an elevated risk, and I think that's a demonstrated situation. I've contacted the developer and told them that we are going to, as opposed to our Monday, Wednesday, and Friday inspections, we are now going to be out there every single day, 7 days a week, looking at that tank and making sure that there is no problem. If there is, we're going to immediately get on the horn, call a pumper, and get it taken care of.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate that.
But Stan, I feel like we're talking out of both sides of our mouth because we just said previously that's probably going to be a few months, several months before, we're going to be able to do this. And it could, you never, with this developer, you never know, right? It could be 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. And I hear what you're saying. You're going to be inspected every day, but there may come to a point where we have to tell them to replace it. Because this could take time before we're ready to flip the switch and actually take control.
It's it is possible. I mean, we're we're going to be monitoring every single day. Right now, the repairs that they have made appear adequate. The rust is happening from the inside, so it's really hard to do a visual observation and say, oh, that spot's looking kind of bad. We can and will continue to inspect very rigorously and try and avoid it in the future.
Okay.
The I think, and your point is well taken about past performance by this developer. I believe they are very much incentivized to get on the ball and get this stuff done now. The costs for the developer to maintain the pump and haul facility are probably higher than the cost will be for the developer to assume the operation and maintenance costs when the plant goes online, even realizing they're paying for most of it. And they will then be able to pull building permits and build and sell additional homes. So they have a lot of economic incentive to do what the agreement had suggested they should have done some time ago. And I think they have now realized that they actually, it was a week ago tomorrow, the developer apparently took it upon themselves to arrange a final startup, presumably with DEP, invited AECOM representatives. I advised them that we'd be declining that meeting, and they could not do that because they weren't in compliance with the agreement. There were a lot of things that needed to be done. Had a follow-up communication with the developer. They, of course, wanted to move forward because they want to build and sell more homes. Clearly, we're not going to let that happen, but they're continuing to try.
That gets back. One button, sorry. That gets back to what we said before. I mean, we have to work with the developer in good faith. I get that. I know Guy will talk about this in exec session, but we are not obligated to go crazy and just to make him happy and keep up with him. We want to do it reasonably, but we're going to need time to get this all figured out. So I think you're taking the right attitude, but we're under no obligation to go above and beyond. He needs to do his job and we need to do ours. And it needs to be a reasonable pace forward.
I agree. And I think it's notable that in the agreement, some of the decisions that will need to come before the board, the selection of the operator, the review of all the financial information, and the agreement upon what the user fees would be, those are things that have to be completed before it starts. However, there is no time frame imposed on the board to make those decisions. We obviously all need to have the complete information to even begin those deliberations. We don't have that now.
So I hear what you're saying. We will have the time. We will have the time to make our good decision. So he can't rush us. We have to be given the information, and then we have the time to deliberate and figure it out. Okay.
Correct.
Stan, what is the age of that frac tank? And the second question, I realize you may not have the answer, and that's fair. What is the manufacturer's lifespan for that frac tank?
I believe the tank is 15 years old. The manufacturer's lifespan, I honestly do not know because I've not seen one used for sewage pump and haul this long. Wastewater is a corrosive environment. It's been out there for 15 years. It's a metal tank. It's going to rust. It's that is in fact what's happening at this point in time.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I have one more. So Stan, just a comment on it. This is probably more to Jeff. I think we're going to be spending a lot more time with you.
Yeah, I would welcome a session with the board once we get the information to consider all of the finances. Maybe we can all roll up our sleeves and talk about these nuances in detail.
All right, thank you, Stan. Any other comments? Is there anything else, Guy, from the solicitor? standpoint?
No, but I can adequately address the board's concern on timing better in executive session. I think if I were to
Yes.
summarize it,
We have
if I
a,
were to summarize it, it's no different than any other developer's expectations
yeah,
of the governing body. Their rights are determined by a document which gives the board time to do things in a deliberate fashion after the developer satisfies its conditions, which they have not. So
Mhm.
I'll get into that a little more candidly when we chat.
All right, thank you. And so we are planning, so we're at the end of our agenda items. Just before we go to public comment, because I'll forget if I don't, we are going to have an short executive session after this meeting. There are a couple of items that we need to get some advice from Guy on. And I think, Guy, you were anticipating that we would stay a little bit longer. So with that, I will open the floor to public comment. This public comment can include comments on anything attendees might want to share. Commenters must state their name and whether they are a township resident or a taxpayer of the township. Do we have any public comment? Antia?
With everything we were discussing, I forgot to tell you, DCNR has a new survey available.
Oh, I want to fill it out.
So it is the Pennsylvania's Outdoor Recreation Plan Survey. It's statewide, but this is their research and public input section of the Outdoor Recreation Plan. I did take the survey. It is supposed to be anonymous. However, toward the end of the survey, they do ask for your zip code and your race and your gender and your income and how many children are in your home, how many adults are in your home. There's a whole slew. Oh, and disabilities. They ask a whole slew of questions. So I don't know exactly how anonymous that really is.
It's on their website.
But it's on their website. I have a link to it on the Save Big Elk Creek Facebook page. They basically want to know what kind of outdoor recreation have you done in the past year? How much money do you spend on it? What kind of money do you spend? Where do you spend your money? What kind of stuff do you want to do? What do you not do because you feel like you have barriers to keep you from doing them? What kind of barriers those are? It's all very, I mean, it's another leading survey from DCNR, but it's out there and there are some sections where you can write in your own comments about what you would like to see in the parks. So it's another opportunity for people to express their opinion that camping does not belong in Big Elk Creek, and things of that nature. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
All right, thank you, Antia.
Thanks.
And Tia, that's only in the freeform section, right? It doesn't say, there's no radio button or checkbox that says.
So there's an other, no, there's not. So it's just an other, again, back to other. And you write in what you want to write in.
All right, thank you, Antia. We have any other public comment? Okay, Eileen?
Eileen Butler, I don't live in this township. And I forgot the other thing I was supposed to say.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm not a taxpayer in this township. I'm sorry. I like this township, by the way.
Yeah.
I just wanted to also say, with what you were saying, it is an opportunity for you to suggest that you would like a diversity of different types of experiences and having it more open and more what's the word I want to use? Contemplative, like when you can, contemplative, right? Instead of noises all around you or real park, they should offer opportunities for quiet enjoyment of nature. So anyway, that's what I'm going to say in my section.
All right, thank you, Eileen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any other public comment? Oh, Paul.
You even got up.
Yeah.
You had a nice seat and a mic. Look at you.
So I would just like to say with respect to the gardens in the park, if there are plants you're looking for, within reason, you may come shopping in my yard. Okay? Because I have a lot of things that always need dividing, as
Oh, great.
you know. So that's it.
All right. Thank you, Paul.
These guys.
All right.
Be careful.
There was the within reason.
Within reason. Okay.
That's so relative.
That's right. All right. Do we have any other public comment before we adjourn? All right. Not hearing any. I make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting at.
Hello, sorry, I was muted. John Auerbach, Franklin Township resident. I did want to talk to the board a little bit about the post-operation issues with the Lexington Point, but this tank issue came up, which I wasn't aware of, and I've had some of my own professional experience with exactly that type of tank. A tank is typically used in chemical cleaning operations to collect waste chemicals when you're cleaning pipe and equipment. So I would expect that a replacement could be probably readily available. I know Halliburton and other companies that do chemical cleaning have them, and you could possibly, the developer could find a replacement. The concern is that the leak is probably due to internal corrosion, and the corrosion rate is not predictable really, the way it's been managed. What you would probably want to do if you're going to continue to use the tank is have somebody do some ultrasonic thickness checks, metal thickness checks on the tank to see what the general thickness is in various areas. Typically what they would do on a long-term tank, they would be doing those thickness checks regularly so you could predict the loss of metal based on a corrosion rate. So I think you could either do some thickness checks to validate the integrity of the tank or just find a replacement. And I think you could find a replacement pretty quickly. I've used many of them in my direct professional experience. Going back to the post-operation thing, I think I addressed some of this things before related to the contracts you need to manage the waste treatment plant. Stan alluded to some of them tonight, but I think you need three fundamental functions. One is the operation of the plant and the daily maintenance, just replacement of consumables and things like that. And then the second contract may be for your long-term capital maintenance, where you replace major components, valves, pumps, control systems, and things and like that. And the third thing is an administrative contract to manage the administrative part of it. I mean, essentially billing and collecting money from the township, from the residents of Lexington Point. And you need a professional firm to do that because you may have people that are delinquent and things like that. So what you may want to do as a proactive step is to look out into the industry and make some inquiries to firms that might provide those services or would be willing to provide those services in advance of need. Because the operator that Lexington Point comes up with and uses may or may not be the operator you want to use going on to run the plant. So I think you get two benefits from doing this now is that you will find out who's interested, and you might find that the plant's so small that there might not be a lot of interest. So you want to know that now. I just recommend you do that as soon as you can. And I think Lexington or ACOM can give you some direction of who you may want to make inquiries to. The second comment's just related to the meetings with the DCNR. I have talked to people on the committee, and people that live in New London are on the committee, and just looking at the way DCNR is managing the meeting is they're really trying to limit the public's access to this information in a very strong and controlling way. And, you know, my 10 years experience with public meetings, both in the township and others, is that they're typically not controlled to this level where you might have some armed guards at the front of the place, preventing people from entering. So I think it's just a point of information that the way they're managing this thing is unique in the way they're trying to control it. And I think the board chair made an excellent point is, what is the product that's going to come out of the citizens committee to the board? So I think you need to define that. I didn't hear that very clearly defined tonight. So that's the end of my comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you, John. Are there any other public comments? All right, not hearing it. I make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting at 8:50 p.m.
Second.
All right, thank you. Jim, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 5-0. Good night, everybody.